Okay, so again, good morning class. No? So now we will be discussing Philippine Accounting Standards 23 or the standards on borrowing cost. Okay, so in this session we will understand the concept of qualifying asset, no, for the purposes of borrowing cost capitalization, and then we will understand the proper accounting treatment of borrowing costs. Okay, and distinguish specific borrowing versus general borrowing. Okay, so again, our textbook reference is Valex et al. 2020. Okay, so PAS 23 actually prescribes, the accounting treatment, of borrowing cost. That may include interest expense, finance charges, exchange differences from foreign currency, and others. Okay, so actually PAS 23 defined borrowing cost as interest and other costs that an entity incurs in connection with borrowing of funds. Okay, so again, na-mention dito, ano-ano yung mga examples, no? Um, we have three examples, no? So we have interest expense calculated using effective interest method. Again, effective interest method. So ito yung mga nasa amortization natin. Okay, so mga ganyan. Second, we have finance charges with respect to a finance lease. Okay, so actually ngayon bago na, no? Wala nang option to operating lease. So actually parang silent na, automatic understood as finance lease na lahat ng leases. We have another exchange difference arising from foreign currency borrowing. Okay, so ina-adjust natin yung interest cost, no? Kasi may mga exchange differences. Okay, so especially if we are operating and reporting our financial statements in pesos, yet we have borrowed in US dollars or in euros. So may exchange differences doon, di ba? Okay, so we will adjust, no, our interest cost. So, ito yung definition, no, ng borrowing cost natin. So, here we define also in this standard what is meant by a qualifying asset. Okay? So, a qualifying asset is an asset that necessarily takes a substantial period of time. So, again, take note, takes a substantial period of time to get ready for the intended use or sale. Okay? So, malaking time daw, no, yung gagamitin, no, to get this qualifying asset for use or for sale. So, we have the example, no, so we have manufacturing plant. Okay? So, yung mga planta, of course, it takes time bago ready for its intended use of manufacturing. No? So, yung mga qualifying asset. Another is power generation facility. Okay? So, yung mga, yung power generation. So, we have, it's either hydrothermal or we have wind, okay? Or we have coal. So, lahat yun ng mga power generation facilities will really take time, no? We also have intangible assets. So, ito yung mga R&D natin, no? Na takes substantial time. So, yung iPhone 12, hindi naman yan basta-basta i-produce ni Apple, no? So, it takes time na intangible asset pa siya, no? For its intended sale. And we also have investment properties. Okay, so apat. Ang binigay na example ni standard. Okay, so again, no, na-mention natin kanina, ano-ano yung mga qualifying assets. Yung qualifying assets kasi, ibig sabihin, pag nag-borrow tayo for those purposes, no, ng ginamit natin siya for those purposes, ika-capitalize natin siya. So, may mga borrowings na hindi natin kinakapitalize. So, example, no, yung biological asset, no, yung, kasi may measure natin siya at fair value. Okay? So we do not require capitalization of interest, no, pag pertaining to biological asset or yung mga assets measured at fair value. Another is yung mga inventory na mina-manufacture, pinuproduce natin on large quantity on a recurring basis. Pabalik-balik, no? So, even if it takes long, no, to get that inventory for sale, no, kahit it takes years, for instance, no, it takes years of purification and refinement, pero pabalik-balik siya and it's on a repetitive basis. So, parang normal na. So, we do not capitalize interest cost that we incurred for that production. And another is yung mga asset that is already ready for the intended use or sale when acquired. Okay, so how do we recognize, no? Ano yung mga rules when we recognize borrowing cost? So first, if the borrowing cost daw is directly attributable, no? Directly attributable, so talagang borrow natin siya for the purpose of acquisition, construction, or production of a qualifying asset. So example, no? Talagang nag-borrow tayo ng 2 million, no? To prepare our manufacturing plant. Okay? So, that is required to be capitalized as part of the cost of that asset. So, yung borrowing cost na makuha natin doon will be added to the cost of our manufacturing plant. Okay? So, yan. So, for short, lahat ng qualifying asset natin at saka yung borrowing cost na attributable doon is mandatory. Okay? So, mandatory talaga siya na i-capitalize sa qualifying asset. So, all the other borrowing cost na hindi directly attributable, expense when incurred. Okay? So, pag hindi siya directly attributable to a qualifying asset, automatic expense immediately. Okay. So, if funds are borrowed specifically, ano ibig sabihin ng specifically? Okay, giborrow talaga natin siya, no? Yung amount of the capitalizable borrowing cost is yung actual borrowing cost incurred during the period, less any investment income on the investment. Okay. So, again if yung funds daw are borrowed specifically, lahat, no, yung actual borrowing cost niya, less lang yung investment income on temporary investment of those borrowings. So, we had an example actually, no, sa textbook, no. So, talagang may nakita dyan na actual borrowing cost. So, paano natin nakuha yung actual borrowing cost, no? So, that is given, no, amounted to 250,000. Okay. So, talagang less lang natin yung earned interest income, no? So, yun yung i-recognize natin. Okay. Yun din yung i-capitalize natin. Okay? So, how about for the assets that are borrowed generally? Ito yung mga general borrowing. Okay? So, yung amount daw of the borrowing cost shall be applied with a capitalization rate. Okay, so, ano yung capitalization rate? No? So, ito yung the weighted average of borrowing cost applicable to the general borrowings. Okay? So, dito, no, i-prorate natin, no? So, paano ba nakukuha si capitalization rate? So, we divide the total annual borrowing cost by the total general borrowings. Okay, so let me repeat. Let's divide the total annual borrowing cost by the total general borrowings. Okay, so nakikita natin dyan sa example on our reference textbook, no? Ito yung mga borrowings for general purposes, no? Okay, so may nakikita tayo dyan na 760,000. Okay. So, ano-ano yung borrowings natin? So, it is the principal of 8 million. So, general na yan, no? For general purposes. Yung some of it were used to finance yung building. Okay? So, let's divide, no? To get the capitalization rate, it is simply 760 divided by 8 million. So, ano yung amount of capitalizable borrowing cost natin dyan? So, nakalagay sa PAS 23, yung average carrying amount daw, the average carrying amount of the asset. So, in this example, yung building, no? Multiply lang natin with the average capitalization rate. Okay? So, yung average carrying amount ng building, we get yung weighted, no? So, alam niyo naman siguro yung weighted, how to get the weighted, no? So, kung ano yung average carrying amount using the weighted average there, okay, that is 2 million, multiply mo lang ng capitalization rate. So, yung caption lang natin dito is that yung caption lang natin talaga dito is dapat yung capitalizable borrowing cost natin, hindi siya lalampas sa actual borrowing cost. Okay? So, yung actual, no, na borrowing cost, which is, yan, nakalagay, is 760,000, no? Yung 190,000 lang, yung ika-capitalize natin. So, again ha, okay yung sa example kasi tumpak, no, na hindi talaga siya lumampas sa 760. So, yung ibig sabihin nito, pag yung capitalizable borrowing cost natin is maging 770, hindi yan pwede, no? Okay. So, hindi kasi siya dapat lalampas sa actual borrowing cost. Okay, so, sa 190, yung 190, yun yung ika-capitalize natin. Isasali natin kay building. Yung sobra na 570, yun, expense immediately na yun. Okay, so, capitalization commences when expenditures for the asset are being incurred. Okay, magsisimula na tayo dyan, no? Borrowing costs are already incurred, at saka the activities that are necessary to prepare the asset for its intended use or sale are already in progress. Okay, so kailan naman natin isususpend, no? Pag nai-interrupt yung active development. Okay, so kailan mag-stop, no? Permanently. Pag totally substantially yung activities na necessary to prepare the qualifying asset is complete na. No? Okay, so wala na tayong capitalization dyan. Kung ready to use na yung building natin, yung plant natin, or yung power plant natin, or yung intangible asset natin. Okay, so yun yung mga important highlights. No? So we still have the disclosure. So, ano yung i-disclose natin? The amount of borrowing cost capitalized during the period at saka yung capitalization rate used. Okay? So, again, capitalization rate used is just equal to the actual borrowing cost divided by yung total borrowing cost. Okay? So, that this will be the highlight, no, for this chapter.